We're 9 days out from Halloween and I still don't know what I'm going to wear, so we're gonna figure that out right now. I decided to start off my trek into Halloweenness by going to everyone's favorite Halloween store, Spirit Halloween. And on my trip, I found all these really, really cool masks. There was all these cool vintage style ones, a hamburger, this cool black cat, I kind of wanted to get him. And then there was this really cool eyeball one. And then there was also these wacky latex Star Wars ones. And I was kind of surprised with the quality of them. They were pretty good. Then I went home. Pretty much as soon as I got home, I started doodling ideas. I did kind of these croquis style ideas just to get out as many ideas as I possibly could. I had like a little demon idea, kind of a funky guy, vampires. I was just kind of out every idea I could possibly think of. And I did about like 30 of these, whatever 4 times 4 is. 4 times 4, I don't know math. And I kind of came up with a lot of different options for me to go forward and, you know, get something out of. Some of these were really cool. Some of them are obvious, like, inspiration from, like, inspired by other things. We have a one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater, you can see. And then I took all those little drawings and I put them as an inspiration next to my doodle board, and I started kind of combining ideas that I liked. And I ended up coming up with this flower demon, and he has flowers for eyes, flower petals around his eyes. Very deep blood orange skin with some horns, kind of a goofy expression because he's a goofy demon. And I did end up creating a whole little story for this guy, so I can share that at the end if you are interested. But I had a lot of fun designing this. Next, I went and opened up my box of unfinished masks, and I took out my plaster face mold of my own face, and I started kind of putting foil on top of it to get a better shape for what I was going for, kind of that round, almost chubby cheek look that I wanted, very cartoony demon monster. I also had these little cans, the little pink ball cans. I'm sure some of you guys recognize them from the gas station. They're a wonderful little shape. I was using them to shape some of my wire. I used this craft wire mesh to shape on it, and it ends up being the base where I put all my clay on. You'll see. You're gonna want to snip all the little curvy bits that you want to curve down, otherwise it's gonna wrinkle, and you can just snip them and then it'll fold over a lot easier. And you can see I was using my little ball to help shape the cheeks and the nose and the forehead. Everywhere I wanted to be round. And then this was a mistake. I used this masking tape around the edge because it was pointy, and I put way too much. If you want to do this, just put like a tiny little amount around the edge. Otherwise, you don't need to do this at all. I was just being silly because the clay doesn't stick to masking tape very well. Unless there's like, you know, I don't know. It doesn't stick very well, so just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be like me. And then I realized that all of my clay is crusty, musty, rusty. So I had to knead it all out, and this literally took hours. And here's my trusty, dusty, handy ball. I'm using it to kind of help me squish my clay because it was crusty. It was just, I mean, you can see it in my little box. Okay, so then I found a little piece of a slightly fresher clay. I found my roller. So then I got to work rolling this stuff out. My arms hurt so bad after this. but it was worth it, okay? It was worth it, because the Super Sculpey, once it is cooked and baked, it is good to go. Okay, I forgot to film me putting on the base of the mask, but essentially I just put a base, like a layer of Super Sculpey on the outside and on the inside, and the horns are just pieces of aluminum foil that I like wadded up into the shape, and then I just stuck it on with the Super Sculpey, and as long as you like squish it together, once it bakes, it is one solid piece. It is not going anywheres. You can see I did the mask. I basically rolled out a long noodle of the Super Sculpey, and I squished it on. I used my little ball, my tiny ball tool to squish the top lip down flat. I made the little teeth, like little candy corn shapes. And I use this scrap piece of wire as a tool as well. I get pretty scrappy with my tools, but whatever works, you know? It doesn't really matter. I was tracing out the eyeballs to see if they looked right in the right placement, and I said, hell yeah, they do. And then I scraped them out because I wanted to use the mesh for something else you'll see later. But I did scrape the clay out of both sides. That was kind of hard because I couldn't really see where the other side was, but it's fine. This is me sculpting the eyeballs, I guess. Yeah. And they were pretty fun to sculpt. And I put the masking tape down because I didn't want the clay to stick to itself. Here's what I did to make the bajillion flower petals for the eyeballs. I hand stitched each one individually, which was actually really calming and very nice. So I'm just gonna leave this nice hand sewing bit in for anyone that appreciates a good hand sewing moment. But then I speed it up because who has time to sit here and watch all of this hand sewing? Like, I don't. You don't. So here's what the eyeballs are gonna look like. And then I have about a bajillion more flower petals to do. But I did them. I promise. I'm gonna show it to you. So we have finished the clay base. It looks pretty good. The reason I left the eyes open is because I want to glue the petals in between and then put the eye on top so that I don't have to work on like a seam later for like hiding the edge of the petals or whatever. They'll be underneath the eyeball. But we're gonna paint it with a primer, which I'm just using gesso. So let's paint it white, and then we'll paint it. I am doing a base of white gesso because if you don't know, if you've never used Super Sculpey or acrylic doesn't really like to stick to Sculpey that well. It's something about the plastic. They're both plastic base, so they're too shiny for each other. So what you want to do is put on a base of gesso, which has a little bit more tooth and grit to it, let it dry, and then start painting on with your acrylic. And now it just, it goes on much smoother. You can still get the details, and it looks a lot better. Just trust me. Never skip the gesso step for Sculpey. That was cute. And then also I recommend painting the inside of your mask because it looks better. It looks cooler. It looks cleaner. I think that it is better. If you don't paint the inside of your mask well, when you see it, you'll be sad. And you don't want to be sad. Okay, here I am painting the horns. I just wanted to do a slight gradient, and how I did this was I added a little bit of like orangey yellow paint to just the tip, and then I took my basically dry brush, like barely any paint on it, and then I just slowly blended it out. So the drier the brush, the easier it is to blend. Think of it kind of like a makeup brush. It's basically a powder at that point. So here's why I wanted to open the mesh back up for the eyeballs, so I could hand sew all of my little petals in. Originally I was going to glue them in, but I decided to opt out on that because glue can interact with paint on fabric, and I was planning on painting the flower petals. Here I am painting them. So essentially, if I was to glue them down, the glue would not, once it dries, I wouldn't be able to paint the fabric because the glue would be in the fabric already. But I was going for I wanted it to still look like fabric and have a nice gradient ombre effect from the dark green to the light green. And glue would have ruined that. So I went ahead and sewed them all in. A little extra work is always worth it. That's not always true, but for this case, it is true. Painting is normally not my favorite thing to do because color theory stresses me the heck out. But when in doubt, go with complementary, which seems to be the only thing I do anymore, is orange and blue with a tinge of green. Here I am doing the eyeballs, and I originally tried to use acrylic paint. That was not cutting it, so I took out my Posca pins, which still technically is acrylic paint, but it's a different form. It's a better form of acrylic paint, okay? As soon as we're done painting the eyes, we can glue them on, and I think we're ready for the unveiling of Florynz, the flower demon. Before his demon lifestyle, Florynz was a very normal, very average, very boring man. He lived with his whimsical wife, the painter. When life seemed to get too boring for poor Florynz, he decided to start a new romance with a beautiful witch named Azalea. Neither the painter nor Azalea knew of each other until one fateful day brought them together. The two women met at a flower market, buying for their individual crafts. Just as quickly as the friendship bloomed, it was soon found out of their shared lover. The two women set to work immediately. With their combined skills, they banished Florynz into the fiery inferno depths as a payback for his lies. For eternity, he was cursed to consume the dead flowers of bouquets given from guilt rather than love. I'm a guy, and I opened up my eyes, and I am happy now. And that is the story of Florynz. I had a lot of fun making this character and making this mask. It kind of all built itself together. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This was my first big crafty YouTube video, and I hope to make plenty more in the future. So if you liked that at all, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. Maybe leave me a comment, like the video. Leave me a comment about what are you for Halloween? It's Halloween today. I'm gonna go to bed now, and I hope you have a great Halloween.